of the most controversial subjects in the country today. The minute you start talking about it, for or against, tempers rise, people start throwing things around. Well, maybe I exaggerate, but I'm talking about GM foods, GM field trials. Should you allow them at all? Should you have genetically modified crops, in other words? And both sides of the debate have very strong views. And as I said, any discussion one way or the other tends to lead to tempers flying a little bit. Also, the entire discussion and debate around this is somewhat rooted in a lot of scientific questions, which tends to get a bit confusing for all of us who don't have much clue as to what the issues are. If you ask somebody who's for or against GM, they will normally send you a big stack of documents that thick and saying read them. So in case that's not what you're attempted to do, over the course of the next 1 hour, we're going to try and deconstruct for you what the debate is all about. And it's been a controversial subject in India for a prolonged period of time, ever since genetically modified cotton first came inside. In fact, there on your screen is a history of the entire issue as it has happened in India. Most recently, of course, there was a discussion whether field trials should be allowed, and the new government doesn't seem inclined to allow it. So what is the ruckus all about? We have been able to assemble 8 of the top experts, I can say, in the field to really help us understand this entire issue. And I'm going to start off by welcoming the people who are here in the studio. Devinder Sharma, who's an analyst looking at food policy against GM. We have Ram Kondelia with us, who's the chairman of the Association of Biotech-Led Enterprises, who feels that, well, he's wrong and all the people who have been attacking GM are wrong. Then we have 2 farmers, one for and one against. Dr. Krishna Chaudhary, who's a farmer, who's the president of the Bharatiya Krishak Samaj. Great to have you with us. Again, doesn't like GM. And we have Balwinder Kang, president of the Sarb Kisan Samaj, who has the opposite views. So thank you all so much for joining us. Joining us then, other experts who are joining us from various parts of the country. From Bangalore, we have Rajesh Krishnan joining us, who's the convener of the Coalition for GM-Free India. So you can guess which side of the debate he's on. We have Dr. Pushpa Bhargav, who is the Supreme Court appointee on Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, who also doesn't think much of GM. But we have Dr. K.K. Narayanan, who is the former project lead at the Monsanto Research Center, now the MD of MetaHelix, which is an agricultural biotech company. And last but by no means the least, it's great and a pleasure to have you with us, and an honor as well, M.S. Swaminathan, known as one of the fathers of the Green Revolution in India.
Thank you,
Great to have you with us. And why don't I actually start off with you first, Mr. Swaminathan. What for you are the key issues in this entire debate, and what is your views specifically on whether these field trials should be allowed or not?
The key issues relate largely to food biotechnology, and the issues relate to food safety, biosafety, biodiversity laws, environmental safety, and so on. But food biotechnology is a problem.
You know, we saw that first big revolution, the Green Revolution in India. For there to be a massive explosion in food production going forward, do you think we need to try new technologies like GM?
Well, the Green Revolution at that time came from conventional technology, what we call Mendelian breeding. And also it was largely a public sector enterprise. We require all technologies for the future. More and more food has to be produced from less and less land. And according to one of the recent predictions, 50% of the hungry people in the world by 2030 will be in Asia.
The question of field trials, do you think field trials should be allowed?
Field trials should certainly be allowed. Otherwise, how do you get the data to justify that your variety is superior to the ones already existing? This can be done only by field trials, but the field trials have to be done with all the biosafety considerations. I think it is our own fault that we have not developed a mechanism. Why, you may ask, why are the Americans not afraid of GM? I said last week there was a new potato variety released as GM, and they are all consuming it. And we should ask ourselves what is the reason, and we have not developed the regulatory mechanisms and the testing mechanisms which can inspire public confidence, political confidence, and above all media confidence.
Dr. Swaminathan, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us with that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very important topic, and I'm sorry I have to leave. Thank you.
Let's start looking at the various points about this. Step number 1, question number 1, point number 1. GM food leads to enhanced production. Yes or no?
the GM crops do not increase productivity. They are putting the gene in a hybrid crop which has a higher productivity. So they claim that it's because of the GM. It is not because of GM. And my information is nowhere in the world do we have crops. And also, let's be very clear, US Department of Agriculture accepts that the yields of GM soybean and the yields of GM corn in America is less than the conventional varieties. So what are we talking about?
Okay, what are we talking about?
No, I think this is not the right information. We have many studies conducted both globally and in India which show the distinct increase in yields which have happened because of the use of the technology. If you take the case of BT cotton in India, our own backyard, we have become the second largest exporter of cotton in the world. So there is enough evidence, empirical evidence, but both at global level and at India level to show that yields have gone up.
Let's clarify. So let me clarify. This is not because of the BT gene. BT gene does not increase the yield. It is because of the hybrids that they are growing, in which they are inserting that gene. It's because of that. There is no gene in the world that they have got for yield.
Even before the gene came, hybrids were there.
We were sowing hybrids before that. I'm a farmer. I live on my own farm and have been doing farming since '84.
And
so
have you seen? And you're using.
Yeah, I'm using BT seeds for the last about 10 years.
And has production gone up?
Yeah,
but we should
we
clarify.
Survived just because of that.
No, we should
if
clarify what is
that
BT
time
gene.
It did not come. We would not have survived as farmers.
Central Institute of Cotton Research has openly said in the report that BT is not to increase the productivity. It's only due to the irrigation facilities and due to hybridization of the seeds. And already we were using the hybridization in seed technology. There's no problem. I had been the chairman of State Farms Corporation of India.
What both of you are saying is that it's happening because of irrigation and hybrids. You're saying no, it's a specific
it's in fact. And in the world, no scientist can prove till today that Bacillus thuringiensis gene will increase the productivity. And in United Nations Agriculture Technology Assessment Committee, there are 400 scientists from 70 countries. They say in a single sentence that GM is not feed the world. GM is not the way to feed the world.
So the gene is not intended to increase yields.
We count the danger on environment and human health.
It is intended to control the pests. So through a better control of the pest, you are able to increase the yields.
But that pesticides also do. Do
pesticides
increase yields?
So we have been using
pesticides also
reduce.
whether
it's because pesticides.
We were using 30 sprays.
We know that.
And that cost was more than the total produce we were getting. And wherever we went in the cotton season, we were inhaling insecticide fumes.
Okay, Rajesh Krishnan, let me get you in and then I'm going to Dr. Bhargav as well. Yeah.
On your question on yields, Vikram, as Devinder Sharma was saying, there is absolutely no evidence that there is any GM crop which has been genetically modified for increasing yields, because yield is a multigenic character which has not been developed anywhere in this country. Coming to the BT cotton debate, it is Cotton Advisory Board and the Central Institute of Cotton Research, which is a premier cotton research institution in this country, which are saying that the pre-BT cotton period, 2000 to 2004, 2004 was when BT cotton had reached only 5% of the total cotton cultivated area in this country. That was a time when 69% of the rate of growth of cotton yield has actually happened. In fact, after BT cotton has reached some substantial area of around 40%, 2005-2006, the cotton yields have stagnated and in fact have been coming down, which is something that the Planning Commission's last report, 5-year plan report, also points to.
That's not your personal
Some years it can happen just because
I'm a farmer
climatic
myself.
conditions.
I
live on my farm and irrigate my fields myself, sow my fields myself, work on the fields myself. I'm a practical farmer, hands-on farmer. And you're always welcome. My address is on the farm, my voter list is on the farm, and anybody who's listening to this is welcome to visit my farm for this.
Okay, can I get in a couple of voices who haven't spoken yet? Dr. K.K. Narayanan, your take on this.
If you want to close your eyes and assume that it's all darkness around, I think nobody can help. Let us look at it. Pre-BT cotton era, our average productivity, not total production, productivity of cotton in this country was less than 300 kilograms per hectare. Today it is 500 kilograms plus. Of course, depending on the weather, the production keeps going up and down. But if you look at the long-term trend, like Mr. Ram Kaundinya was trying to make out, the average increase in cotton productivity has been over 4% from 2002 onwards. See, the BT gene is intended to control the bollworm which is a very serious pest of cotton. So that used to rob us of the cotton yields. Now when you have an effective control against the bollworm through the deployment of the Bt gene, the yield production increases. So how do you increase productivity? You can increase the per se productivity of the crop plant, which, like Rajesh said, I agree with him, it is multifactorial. There are multiple factors. But you can also increase the productivity by reducing the losses. And in India, most of the losses, unlike in the Western country of either food or agricultural produce, happens in the farm and between the farm and the dinner plate. That is where the losses happen, unlike in some of the Western countries where a lot of food is wasted on the plate.
In fact, I'm happy that Narayanan brought it up about the bollworm incidents. Again, the same Central Institute of Cotton Research, in its 10-year analysis of Bt cotton from 2002 to 2012, says that after the year 2000, 2 years prior to Bt cotton's commercialization in this country, bollworm attacks in this country have substantially come down, and there has been no major incidents of bollworm attack. So what is this Bt gene doing is the question. It is doing absolutely nothing. The increase, again the same CICR report says that the increase in cotton yield in this country is because of increased adoption of hybrids in the state of
You can already start to see why this is such a, two such divergently different views. Dr. Narayanan.
Sorry. You see, 95% of cotton in this country is Bt cotton. Today, if you don't have the Bt technology in your cotton hybrids, you can't sell them. So, you must either assume that the farmers don't see the benefit, or you must assume that, some magic is working on them. I think we should grant them also some wisdom, like the farmer in the panel just now said.
Mr. Rajesh Krishnan said it's marketing.
See, you can't market if you don't have a good product.
It's called as aggressive marketing. It is a country which sells
skill whiteness.
Why
it doesn't sell.
You cannot market a bad product.
Right?
See, if the product is bad, whatever marketing you do, it will not sell. And 60 lakh farmers in India use it on 12 million hectares for the last 10 years. They are not.
Before I come back to Oliver, can I just go to Dr. Bhargav? Dr. Bhargav, I'm just trying to understand what the legal position is, and seeing as you are a Supreme Court appointee on the GEAC, essentially, if I understand this correctly, Bt cotton, GM cotton is there and it's allowed right now. The question that we are really debating going forward is whether that should be extended into food or not into food, and specifically whether field trial should be allowed or not allowed when it comes to food. Is that substantially correct? What really is the legal position right now?
As regards the legal position, the court has allowed field trials.
The courts have allowed it, but the government is not sounding completely clear as to whether it is going to allow it or not. I mean, we've been hearing different views from various governments over the years on this entire subject.
During the rule of the last UPA government, the environment minister had stopped all field trials. But the new minister now has again allowed field trials, saying that the court has not banned field trials.
Yeah, Devinder?
Okay, the question that we need to understand here, why do we need field trials, and what is the reason that people are saying we don't need to have field trials? That's, I think, the question that we need to understand. When you do a genetic makeup or genetic engineering, there is a gene which is responsible, which can escape into the environment. And what has happened in America, if you look at it, American agriculture today is a devastated agriculture environmentally. 100 million acres, you have super weeds now. Super weeds, and they are finding it difficult to remove those weeds, and now they are using all kinds of cocktails and even going in for hand weeding to remove weeds, super weeds, which cannot be controlled by the kind of pesticide they used to spray. That's one problem. Then we have super insects now. Then we have all this contamination causing so therefore we
can I come to some of the scientific other issues? I'm just trying to understand first what the position in India is. We've had various statements, and I'm saying even from the government. Yes, Jayanti Natarajan took a certain position. Then in February 2014, earlier this year, we had Manmohan Singh saying, while safety must be ensured, we must not succumb to unscientific prejudices against Bt crops. Yeah. Then when the Bt government comes in July 31st, first field trials are put on some sort of pause, and now in August we're having the minister saying, we're not saying no to science. Nobody can say no to science. We have to take proper caution. We have to take proper action but you cannot deny we're not living in the Galileo times.
Yeah. So I think there are two issues here. There has been a complete stoppage of any developmental work on this front in the last 5 years. The industry has been begging to start a developmental process. There are two issues here. One is that the central government has to give, GSA has to give permission for field trials. Second is that each state government has to give an NOC, and this is a new condition which was put by the environment minister in 2010, that every state government has to give an NOC. So at both the levels, the GSA, which is supposed to approve the trials, has not met for more than 3 times in the last 4 years, and they have been completely dilly-dallying on this. Go to the states, even with the limited approvals which were given, the states were not giving
just
NOCs.
to understand, all of these trials which we are talking about now and further development work is when it comes to food, not when it comes
for
to
all
cotton.
crops, even
and including brinjal and BT brinjal, which was once they were talk about allowing it, even that's on freeze right now.
Yeah. BT brinjal was on freeze because of the moratorium. There is a moratorium put on brinjal development in 2010, because of which further work has stopped.
So let's be very clear, Vikram.
Can I
The
just add
BT
to
brinjal
that?
campaign, the BT brinjal ban or moratorium came when Jairam Ramesh held national consultation at 7 places. People said, no, we don't want. At every place, people said, we don't want BT brinjal. Now, when people don't want it, I want to, let me finish this. When people don't want it, why is the industry
They were
pushing
all
it?
hired people.
Yeah, Parliamentary Standing Committee
Where-
visit to
where-
Andhra.
that was a national consultation, not in a studio.
Last
year I had sold
what happened was
brinjals on
farmer
a
committing
small patch
suicide.
of
The
land
all were
for my
BT
own
grower
consumption.
family, and then standing
you know,
committee met to all families, and
Yeah,
they say,
you know,
I
no,
want to
it
say
should
I
be banned
sold
for
So
brinjal
everyone.
last
the
year.
parliamentary standing committee said that, I mean, I can actually quote it for you. It said that the regulators approved it, BT brinjal, despite toxic content in the crop. The environmental risk assessment for the crop was also flawed. That's what the standing committee said.
What I want to say, last
Vikram,
year
I want
had
to say
sold-
that
Well,
the
Rajesh,
standing
hang on,
committee,
let me just
I'll take just a minute on a small patch of land for my own consumption, and everybody said, okay, you should spray insecticide and this is poisonous, and maximum insecticide in India is used on brinjal, and everybody is consuming that brinjal, and I did not get a single brinjal in the whole year from that. It was infested by bollworms and shoot borers and everything.
So you're saying that using that BT gene to curb the pest is
at least that pesticide use is reduced.
But you see, the question again comes back, and actually,
Pesticide use
let me
is
throw that.
absolutely reduced.
So Rajesh, let me throw it to you.
Now, why the pesticide sprays have been started in the BT fields? Can you reply this question? Why more than 12 to 14 spray have been started in Maharashtra itself now?
5 to 6,
and how
they are
they
only
are
for
lot of
sucking
money
pests.
they are
They are not
spending?
for bollworms.
What are you talking?
It is not
Why you are misguiding the people?
No, it is not meant for.
There is no question of your
It
opinion.
is
There
not
is a
meant
question
for
of the whole
bollworms.
country.
We have to spray
How the
it
farmer
for
committing in
sucking
Andhra
pests.
Pradesh, Tamil Nadu,
And
all
nobody
states.
can deny it.
I
can say it
all
under
over the
oath.
world, all over the
I'm
world,
willing to
pesticide
say this
usage,
under oath.
all over the world, pesticide usage in countries
We
where
can
GM
imagine
crops
how-
are grown is grown phenomenally.
No, that
In
is
China,
wrong.
it is 20
That's
times
wrong,
more
completely
on
wrong.
BT cotton.
It's completely
In
wrong.
America, let me finish first, then you can answer. In America, 400 million pounds of pesticides are additionally being used after BT crops came, GM crops came in.
exactly
If you
the
look at Brazil, look at Argentina, 20
exactly the
times,
opposite.
300
You
times more.
quote statistics. He says it's exactly the
They
opposite.
don't want to listen
And
to
all of
it.
us are now
They
scratching
don't
our
want
head.
to read those
500,000
statistics.
tons, 500,000 tons of
20
pesticides have been
super
reduced in the
generated
world.
after implementation of GM crops in US. You agree or not?
No,
Is it
I'm saying that 500,000 tons.
Hang on. So you
not a
see, now you
pesticide.
know why this is such
Why
a
they are
complex
using
issue.
pesticide now?
Now you know why the government also keeps making flip-flops, all governments. It's because he says, I have the studies to show something.
I
He
have
says
the
he has
study,
the studies to show the opposite. And so does he. I mean, everyone says that they have studies. Now, I'm asking you, therefore, a question. Rajesh, let me come back now then to the question of field trials and further analysis by impartial third-party groups. So what is wrong in saying that there should be some sort of field work, maybe the government sits and does a whole lot of trials to try and actually understand what's happening? Then we can take decisions on this based not on what one party is saying or the second party is saying on marketing or on political pressure, but based on scientific facts. What's wrong with doing those studies?
I would like to talk about the legal system, I mean the legal certain developments here, which Dr. Bhargava missed out probably. The Supreme Court had set up a technical expert committee to look at this question, that whether this country should do field trials or not. This technical expert committee was made up of eminent scientists from various fields of biosafety, including an eminent scientist from Dr. Swaminathan's Research Foundation also. And they said that any field trial is actually exposing a genetically modified organism into the environment, and there is a possibility of that the genes escaping, the aliens genes escaping into the natural system, because pollination cannot be stopped. There are so many, science says that and experience says so. They said that first biosafety studies need to happen within the glass house to ensure that no such risk, be it short term, long term or cumulative, will not happen. And they said there should be a staggered manner in which it should be done. So
hang on. We do studies,
proper
but surely there should be a way of doing the studies so that genes, potentially dangerous genes, do not escape.
No, nobody can disagree with what you just now said. But the fact is, there are a number of studies which are conducted by independent agencies, by public institutions, even agencies which are inimical to GM crops. For example, I can cite a study which has not one study, actually several studies over the last 15 years funded by the European Union, particularly the political hues dominated by the Greens. They wanted to get evidence against the GM crop, and 1 year back, what did they report? They compiled report of over 250 studies. They said that the GM foods and the GM crops are no more unsafe than food and crops developed through any other methods. Now, just a week back,
that's absolutely
in the Public Library of Science, there has been a compilation or what is called a meta-analysis of all the studies done between 1995 and 2014.
Rajesh,
and what is the conclusion that they have drawn? They have said that the GM crops which have so far been commercialized have all led to substantial benefits.
Rajesh?
The European Union study was called as Early Warnings from Late Lessons, and it said that GM crops should not be allowed. I don't know how can Narayan mislead this and even misinterpret that kind of a black and white report which said that Parliament should not be permitted.
I think your listeners should just check into www.europeanunion.com and then look at the GM crop report.
Please do that.
Right now.
It's called as early warnings.
95% of the farmers in this country, cotton farmers, they use this technology. Now, the other side is saying it's because of marketing. Now, can you market a product which is a dud?